So a quick introduction, my name is Keith. I'm here with Shark Indicators. We've been involved in the NinjaTrader ecosystem since 2011, providing tools like Bloodhound that help traders be more productive and in control of their own trade systems. We're always looking for ways to add to the trader's toolkit, and this webinar is part of that mission. So Will, I'm going to promote you to presenter so we can get started.
Yep, a little bit. We'll go ahead and get started. A little bit about PFA, acronym PFA being Pure Financial Academy. If some of you are already aware of our company, we've been around for nearly a decade, quite a while. We are specifically an online trading education and community dedicated to supply and demand order flow methods. That's just our kind of think of it, I guess as our philosophy, right? And I know there's many people that have that same philosophy. So if they do, I certainly encourage that. It's a wonderful way of doing it. By no means is it the only way. I think there's definitely more than one way of doing things. But I also have a very humble yet firm belief that regardless of any trading strategy, and I literally mean any trading strategy out there, I do believe that supply and demand levels in general can increase the probabilities and thereby make a more efficient trading strategy, even if you're using something different. We can certainly, I can address some questions regarding that, but we do talk about that in our live room quite frequently. Even all the way down to, and I don't mean to demeanor this or anything, I'm just saying even all the way down to a simple strategy like a moving average crossover, which in my experience, most people ultimately fail when using, a simple strategy like that. But it's not because it doesn't work, it's because it doesn't work in all market conditions, right? So if we're using things like that, maybe at the right time and location, i.e. supply and demand locations, yeah, I think it can work absolutely wonderful. So again, you guys know, what we are. Again, we've been around, well, as you can see there, for since about 2009, providing material and software. We absolutely believe in the power of having others. It's always a good thing, thus the PFA community, and that's why we use that terminology there. So it's our mission to provide a positive and effective environment for all traders who want to come our way, and investors, of course, who wish to utilize supply and demand trading methods. Share their experience as a team, and ultimately just again be a community, kind of have fun together. I think that's what it's all about. So a little bit about us. There is our domain or website, if you will. I'd love for you guys to visit it at any time, purefinancialacademy.com, and feel free to email us at support@purefinancialacademy.com. And of course, you can give us a phone call at 404-863-1651 at any time. I'll be happy to bring this back up towards the end of the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to move a little bit swiftly through this because I know one of the things, I will start with this, and this goes out to Keith and all you guys, Zach, everyone over there at Shark Indicators. I've been looking forward to today, and one of the reasons for that is because I know that in the room this room is likely filled with very tech savvy individuals. Even if you're not, that it's perfectly fine, but generally speaking, I know you guys are very good at what you do and tech savvy, and so I thoroughly enjoy having the conversations that I hope to have today. So here's our presentation overview, if you will, a few things we're going to talk about. Supply and demand, again, you already know we gave a little bit of that about us, right? A little bit about PFA and all that. We do focus on supply and demand. I'm pretty sure that, again, I'm speaking with a lot of advanced traders or even beginner traders looking to get into the technical world, I suppose. So I'm pretty sure that most of you know what supply and demand is, but literally supply to us is a representation of sell order flow, whereas demand is just a representation of buy orders. It's an abundance of buy orders or order flow, if you will, anywhere on the price chart for any market for any time frame. So to simplify that, I'm not even going to read through this slide. I'm just going to simply let you know that as anyone's belief, supply and demand rather works a lot like support and resistance, meaning supply is above current price, demand is below current price, and supply being similar to resistance, so support being similar to demand. We do believe, obviously, that they're very different in nature. There are certain things that support and resistance can accomplish, and I would even go further to say that support and resistance is actually far extensive compared to supply and demand. At the end of the day, supply and demand zones, levels, whatever you'd like to call it. That's essentially just one thing, right? But when you talk about support and resistance, you're talking about a plethora of things. We could be talking about, structure highs and lows. We could be talking about trend lines. We could be talking about just multiple retests of areas, breaking through them, retesting it. So again, it kind of gets pretty vast. So let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. In just supply and demand in general, I only want to tell you this because when we go to look at the fun stuff, you'll see why we do what we do. So supply, as I mentioned, just simply a large mass of sellers. What we work in is zone theory. So we take, however you want to do it. We use rectangles, but of course we could use horizontal lines, rays, anything. It doesn't really matter. We just need to represent a high and a low value in order to generate a range. And again, we're going to use the term zone, but essentially that zone contains a high and a low, which forms the range. We utilize the zones around what we anticipate to be supply and or demand, and we keep it that simple, right? We absolutely try to keep it that simple on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot more, of course, that goes into it as far as analysis purposes, but ultimately, we either have supply or demand or we don't. Okay, so this is what it would look like on a price chart here. We have large historical selling. Again, that's a representation of supply. We would fully expect that price could turn there again, so long as it meets our risk to reward, and of course the additional criteria that we can certainly look at out on a price chart momentarily. There's really no reason for us not to go at that again, right? History has a way of repeating itself. I would say the times that it doesn't is, of course, when you're against the direction, right? So history, not so much. I know that you guys have probably seen many times, today included, as a matter of fact. I'll show you guys today what we covered in our live room and how we were not looking to sell up at that beautiful structure high. In fact, we were looking to sell there 2 days ago, but not today. And so it's ironic. You just have to differentiate that and adapt to the market conditions. I'll be happy to show you guys how we did that. Okay, so demand being to the buy side. You guys can see there represented by the zone. Of course, there was large selling, large buying, and we know that because price exponentially rallies away from this area. So again, if we keep things this simple, instead of thinking about every bar on the chart, we just really want to gravitate to the areas that large moves, took place from, and of course, we spent a little bit of time there, so on. All right, and so out of demand, we would expect new buyers as well as those historical buyers to recreate a market turning point. Okay. All right. So now that you have a little bit of a boring spiel about things that you probably already knew, supply and demand, what it is, and our philosophy, if you will, what we've done over the years, and this has been many years, we developed a tool. Now, going back again, a decade ago, we didn't have this tool, right? So it took us, approximately, I would say, maybe around 8 years ago or something, we began development on our tool. So we've been doing this a very long time, but it's been an extensive development for many years, and we never developed the tool for any other reason to reduce subjectivity. So it's not designed to be some holy grail or going out and just a bunch of trace signals that we can execute every single one. It's not like that. It's not designed to be that type of trading system, all right? So we still want to apply our methodology, understanding when is a good time to buy, when is a good time to sell. And actually, we have a Bloodhound template they're going to be working with today that is going to display exactly that. So once you see all of the automation involved in our software, I think you'll see how we can accomplish some pretty great things. So what we, again, just to reiterate, we took everything that we did manually. So that comes all the way from drawing our zones, all the way up to determining different data points, different locations, utilizing what we refer to as the altitude grid, essentially just determining if we're in the right location to buy or sell. So all of this that you're going to see today is 100% automated. It will be in our PFA zone suite. And that's what you're looking at here, just a little slide to kind of introduce that. It utilizes many algorithms: price recognition, volume distribution, market volatility, just to say a few, right? So it essentially relays the information on the chart with those rectangles that we're referring to, as well as other graphics to give those visuals. I realize, guys, sometimes, and I'm that person, I really like a clean chart, and we're able to accomplish or accommodate that. But at the same time, I really need the information so that I'm not having to think constantly, right? And produce calculations and things that just ultimately should not, take up our time. I think that hinders our trading overall, okay? All right, so I mentioned earlier in the presentation about the possibility in supply and demand making it overall better, any strategy, and that's what I'm saying here. So it can be used for enhanced confluence purposes. Again, it can be incorporated for any trading strategy. Let's look at some of the features and functionality. This is what you're going to see in the live charts here in just a moment, and we're looking at our automated supply and demand zones. None of this is being done manually at all. We didn't draw any of this. It's auto-calculated, of course. And right now, it's probably not going to make a whole lot of sense, what you're seeing. Suffice to say, these are the supply demand zones that are automated, and inside of them, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that is. Okay. So this here is what you were looking at just on that previous one. If I go back, you'll notice inside of each of those zones, the histograms. Okay. So let's dive into that a little bit. Multiple things here that our order profile or volume profile, if you will, contains. So a lot of people use a lot of things different. We just simply apply a logical approach to it. To the left side there, you're looking at buy and sell volume, so buy versus sell, and then we also take that information, compare it to all of the previous zones. Basically, we're trying to determine the strength or weakness of said zone. Not only that, that's to the left side of the zone, but if you look in the zone, that histogram that you're looking at, all those different colors, you basically have yellow, darker yellow, it goes into a very dark gray color and then to the light gray color. So I focus on the gray colors myself. As I said, many people use this in different ways, but if you think about order flow, I guess I would throw a logical question out there for you. If you have a lot of orders in one specific location, and we do because we have a supplier demand zone there. In this case, this happens to be a demand zone. So if we have a location where a lot of orders are taking place or have taken place, I should say, but yet inside of that, if you really take a deep dive inside of it, and yet you see little locations within it that were not capable of actually filling many orders, that should tell you that those are likely still there, okay? So again, it's not like they just sporadically throw orders in there. The institutions are very methodical, and they generally place a lot of orders at very specific locations, and that is what turns price. So if I can go into that and I can define the areas that we gap, I just refer to as a gap over, it's not a literal gap, but if we jump over, take for example, I'm not sure if you guys can see my mouse here. I suppose I could, let's see here, maybe I can use a highlighter. What I'm referencing is this little area right in through here, right? When we look at, of course, there's more than one. It's not just the one. I'm just simply focusing on this one, that light gray area. What that tells me is that for some reason, this entire area down here was very capable of filling many, many, many orders, a bunch of orders, thus the big yellow spikes. But for some reason, this very small area right in through here, it just jumps right over it and then begins filling more orders right in through this location here. So that's why I refer to this as a gap area. Why did we jump over that area so quickly? And generally, the answer is going to be because there were so many orders there and no orders to the opposing side, price just pushes just over that area. So it does generally leave a lot of orders on the table that we could potentially go back and fill at a future date. All right, so let's keep moving forward here. Some of the other features, of course, into the order flow profile, just your value area. We built in a value area, of course, many years ago. We also have the point of control, and we'll look at how you could use that out on the live price charts. This is, of course, my favorite feature. As simple as it is extraordinarily effective. I assure you, you will see this on the price chart in just a moment. So let me move as fast as I can. And I promise this will all make sense, especially when you see the, the Bloodhound template that we have working. What you're seeing here is not just multiple time frame zones, it's actually simultaneous multiple time frame zones on any time frame. So hypothetical, I could take a 5-minute chart, I could put daily zones and 15-minute zones all together on a 5-minute or 30-minute or 10, any, it could even be a tick or a volume chart, whatever. So we can do that. This is nothing new. We've been doing multiple time frame zones for many years, as you guys know probably, or if you're not, you'll certainly see those on our YouTube videos going back. However, this is a new concept of having it all built in and working simultaneously. So previously we had to go through the cumbersome top-down approach. We would start on a larger time frame, work our way down, and just have to go to chart to chart to chart. We don't have that issue anymore. We can literally go to one chart and we can grab our supply and demand from a completely different time frame, and we can align those time frames with, say, in my case, I love the daily and the 60-minute chart, but I can now take that, alleviate the noise from the smaller time frame, because I can put those all on the daily chart. So without me talking too much about it, let's go ahead and see if we can get out to the live charts here in just a moment. This is just showing you how you can use the order flow profile in both sets of zones, again, all simultaneously. And now if you look right here, we talked a little bit about those light areas. This is basically where the unexecuted orders, or to say it in different terminology, where they were not capable of actually filling or executing those orders. If we take a close look, we can combine the larger zone with the smaller zone. And again, you're just increasing probability for a very refined entry. So if we follow that left, as you can see there, it hits that area almost perfectly. And I'm not just showing you one beautiful slide, guys. Well, I'll be happy to show you this on the live chart. I'll even let you define the market if you want to do it that way. It doesn't matter to me, because ultimately that's how confident we are in the software. So yeah, it's not just here to make it look fancy and hey, it works so great. No, that's not the case at all. So let's go take a look in just a moment. Don't take my word for it. As you can see here, one of the additional items, and I'm just highlighting a few. There are many that I'm not actually capable of covering given the time limitations, but I'll do my best. This is another one. Each zone has order management built into it. So for example, you can toggle on or off pre-calculated entry, stops, and targets at any time. Now there's multiple different ways, but think of this as a trading plan, right? Or excuse me, I should say a portion of the trading plan. This helps us to automate where our entries and targets and stops and all of that's going to be in a visual aspect. So no longer do we have to kind of guess at it. We can absolutely build a definitive trade plan. We can implement that into our order inputs, and then from that point forward, it will display that onto the price chart for you. So that's a simple toggle that we can turn on or off. Okay, and I'm just kind of highlighting that there. All right, a couple of the other things, we do have user-controlled order flow analysis. This is a rectangle that we can, of course, manually manipulate. And if you notice, I'm just going to run through this really quick, but I'm going to highlight a few areas. And if you go back, notice how most of these turning points, if not all of them, ironically, right, they're turning in these areas that I keep referencing. So a lot of people have generally focused on the high volume areas, and that doesn't make logical sense in the way that we trade. For them, yeah, sure, it might. But for us, we're looking for two types of orders. And if all of the orders have predominantly been filled, then we don't have our historical orders. So again, notice the little turning points in through there. You'll see where most of them turn. Ironically, it's not on the large spikes. In fact, it's the exact opposite, right? So we could keep going there. Just a couple of examples there. We'll move forward. Now this beauty right here is something that it's actually built into today's presentation. We're going to look at this on the live chart. It may seem like something simple, yet this thing can save us a lot of time and a lot of money. And by the way, this is actually very recent. I built these charts that you're looking at very recent. So you're going to see this here in just a moment. We have indeed broken above that 2824, which is what we anticipated because we've been there multiple times. But finally, I know you guys are probably paying attention to that 2800. We finally made it through it. So the perceived value, our altitude grid on the right side of the chart, or excuse me, the right side over here. So I'm simply referring to this grid on the right side there. That's some have thought of it as an equity curve. I have encouraged them not to because it goes far beyond that. meaning it does multiple things, not just looking at the equity curve. Having said that, it is a means of, as I said, perceived value, but it does help you to determine, look, am I buying high, selling low? Because obviously that's not what I want to be doing. And right now, in fact, we're trading right about here. We're going to look at that, right? So we're trading right about there. And notice the color of this big grid up here. That's kind of what I refer to as a no-no zone, all right? Wouldn't want to be buying up there, ironically, right? At least not for holding on to positions. Okay, so the next thing is market structure. I know this seems like a very basic concept, but the way that we've done it, as you notice here, I just want to bring your attention, notice how it's not defining these swings over here. Notice how that's just one big swing to the upside. There's a reason that it's doing that. It's trying to help you see that you're trading within a range. So our market structure is, of course, a bit more unique, and it's developed using custom algorithms and all that good fun stuff. But it does really help us to do multiple things, including helping us determine where that perceived value is, because we can take the altitude from swings, trends, overall market dynamics, and so on. All right, and finally we have automated trend lines. This being a very subjective matter for most people, including us. I mean, at the end of the day, we have a very methodical approach to it, which is why we were able to automate it. But that is what you're seeing here. It's an automated trend line. Okay, and we're getting right here to the end of this. These are alert lines. Those black lines that you're seeing on the chart, again, may not seem very important to you, but for us it was. And the reason for that is because there's a calculate on bar close setting. Again, you guys I know are very tech savvy, so you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. But the issue came into us we have many alerts. For example, when you touch a zone, it can alert you. When a new zone forms, it can alert you, both via audible as well as email and so on. And that's great, it sounds really good. But the problem was either you're going to have to turn that setting off, okay, and then you run the risk of complete CPU intensiveness, maybe even shutting down the platform or something like that, and that's never a good thing. So we had to find a way around this, and that's what we did. So with these alerts, all of our alerts now, in fact, are real time. And we got around the issue of only calculating on the close of the bar. So when we touch the line, we actually get our alerts. We can enable those, as I said, for both email and audible. Okay. All right. Finally, our user input. Well, we call it our user inputs, but it's essentially our user interface. Now, we've done things a little bit different. I really enjoyed working with the guys at Shark Indicators on this because I think it was a little bit different than they've seen before, and always a good thing, right? But we didn't have to, but we did go out and develop this for user-friendly aspects, as well as we did run into a little bit of issues because the software being, I guess I'll use the term robust, it just simply has so much functionality built into it that we could not maintain all of the settings without kind of running into some issues here and there. So what we did is we just said, hey, let's just build our own. So everything we do is actually held externally in our own template. So what you're seeing up here, where it says, for example, save and load templates, that's actually PFA templates, and it really has nothing to do with NinjaTrader in itself. It is indeed only creating or generating templates for our software. Now over here, what you're seeing is these are essentially categories, if you will, okay? Each one containing a different item. For example, we have the general tab. You're going to see what all the settings, typical stuff, font styling. We actually have several more settings here now, which I can show you in a moment. But that's where the alerts come in. And again, just all the different settings, primary, secondary zones, altitude, grid, you get the picture. A lot of different things there, and each one of those categories that you click on is going to contain all the settings for that particular portion or item. Okay. Excellent. And finally, the last thing here is our just small user interface. All this is really is on the zones. In our drop-down menus and our user interface and so on, we have the ability to toggle all things on or off at the same time. take, for example, we could turn on all of the order flow profile for all zones at once, or only all demand or all supply, etc. But me personally, I'm not crazy about that because it tends to clutter up the chart. So of course, I implemented the ability to do it for individual zones as well. So no need in spending a lot of time on that. This is our overview. We will circle back to that momentarily. Let's go ahead and get out to the fun stuff, right? Okay, let's see if I can find my correct screen here. So now we're out to the charts. Now this is the Bloodhound template we're going to be working out of today. I know that you see these vertical lines. I imagine that most of you in the room are already familiar with Bloodhound, if not more so than myself. Again, you guys are very tech savvy. I get it, and I love it. But for those of you who are not, okay, what I want to do is just kind of point out real quick what's actually happening and what Bloodhound is doing here on the chart. So if you notice these big vertical lines, everything that you're going to see today, with the exception of that, is from the PFA Zone Suite. It's from our software. However, those vertical lines, those are actually coming from Bloodhound, and what it's doing is taking specific criteria in which we provide. So think of that as a trade plan, right? It's kind of like building your own trading system or building your own trading plan, what have you. So that's what we've done here in this template. We've given it criteria points, and we've said, look, I want you to take demand when in this location, take supply when in this location, and disregard others when you're in, or I should say, when you're not in the right location. And remember earlier, I was talking about this grid to the right side of the chart over here. Let me just do something real quick, because again, I like to keep things real clean, and I was going to just show you guys all this in a moment, but let's just clean up the chart really nicely for a bit here. And again, this big grid over here, that's what we're going to be looking a lot at that today. And it may seem very simple. Of course it is. I think most everything that we do is quite simple, but ultimately very powerful, right? So it does help us. Without it, we really can't achieve what we hope to achieve. Okay, so remember, just all, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. Just note to everyone, I'm just gonna, like I said, throw it out there. We are in this red zone here for a reason. Okay, red, just like you would imagine, is not a positive, right? It's actually the opposite. So if you pull up to a red light, you stop, green go and all that. Pretty standard color scheme there, but we go from red, orange, dark green into green, because the light green, or lime, I think it is, whatever the lighter shade of green is down here, that's a great thing. I mean, who doesn't love to see green, right? It's like money, or it's like, whatever it is. So great color scheme, I think, there. But green represents the low levels of altitude, and we would most certainly be looking for buy opportunities there. Inverse to that, this area up here, whereas red, we are very cautious on our buy setups, okay? I'm not in any way saying that you can't buy up here and make excellent money on demand levels of, let's say, very short term, maybe day traders, even, scalpers especially, but even day traders. I just would not myself go up here and be looking for swing and position trades, okay? That's not something that I would do. Disclosure purposes, I don't hold a lot of trades. I don't trade a lot. In fact, the only thing I'm holding right now is a spider's position from right down here, and I'm just doing my best to hold on to that position as long as I can. So we are arriving in this red location right now. My goal is to pay very close attention to that and know when to get out of that position. We could make a higher high, absolutely. If that's the case, well, I'll take all the luck I can get, But ultimately, being very methodical about it, I will exit that position if told to do so by price action. So let's scroll. We're going to come right back to this so that you guys get a firm understanding of what it is. We can circle back. We can look over here. This is actually the S&P as well. So why don't I actually, I was going to do a couple of different things, but I tell you what, why don't we actually start on the Bloodhound template, and then we can just go over here and we can start walking through any market that you want, right? We got GE up, we got the S&P, oil, gold, whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. As I said, we're confident in our software, and so yeah, let's just go ahead and get started with the Bloodhound first, though. What in the world do all of these vertical lines mean? Okay, so It doesn't really mean much of anything right now because we pretty much have a blank chart with a big grid over here. Now, first thing I want you to understand about the grid in itself, it is always dynamic, meaning that it is, maybe I should use the word adapting. It's always adapting to current market conditions. So it is changing. So if I were to scroll, way back here, it's going to look different for all intents and purposes. When this price action wasn't here and it was back here, it would have obviously looked different than it does today. And this is actually today's price action. That's real time. So just wanted to throw that out there and let you guys know the advance. What we're doing here is I wanted to provide something that says, our goal is to keep things simple. We're not always right. We're not always trying to be right. Well, I guess that's not fair to say. We are trying to be right, but we certainly aren't. And it's not our goal, I should say, to be right 100% of the time. It's not even our goal to be right 90 or 80% of the time, or even 70. Ultimately, if we can be profitable, I like to exaggerate a little bit, but even if we could be profitable 50% of the time, if we approach the markets very well, it can treat you extraordinarily well, right? But if we let our emotions get involved, if we're not capable of following our provided trading plan or created trading plan individually, if you're not capable of following a trading plan, really what's the point in creating it, right? So we want to keep that very simple. And what you're looking at here is exactly that. It is a means of keeping things extremely simple. My mouse seems to be going crazy there. What I wanted to do today is show you how effective simplicity can actually be. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to explain to you what you're actually seeing. The red, as you probably have already guessed, is where we would be preparing for a sell opportunity, whereas the green is where we would be preparing for a buy opportunity. So again, back here, we're saying, okay, well, we're going to start looking for sell positions. Over here, we would say we're going to start looking for buy positions, actually multiple times here. Over here, we're going to start looking for sell positions again. Actually, right here, put this in, we'll see this when we turn on the zones. How about that? Because we don't, I believe if memory serves me correctly, that's a multiple retested zone. And just so you guys know, and this is the one thing that I didn't build into the Bloodhound template here. I'll be happy to do that at any time, but right now I just didn't have the time. So note to self, as we move through this, the way that I like to approach the markets is not to keep trading a zone, right? So if I get the zone, I get a great trade off of it, I'm going to essentially walk away and just wait for the next. But we'll look at that again. There's another sell. We would be preparing to sell here. We would be preparing to sell here. Again, I believe that's a multiple retest. This up here, we'd be looking to sell. And then you can see that there's a couple of green ones, or actually one green one. We're looking to buy on the bar where that individual green, let me open this up a little bit. Okay, so we're preparing to buy when the green signal is initiated. Again, looking to sell on red, buy on green, sell on red, buy on green, and of course, buy on green as well. Now, we also move into a couple of recent sellable potential opportunities into a certain location. So how are we arriving, or better yet, how are we deriving these signals, right? Number one, we're utilizing our altitude grid, which is, of course, as I said, automated. We're not doing any of this manually. We're saying, okay, look, here's the altitude, but I'm looking to keep things simple. I want to buy low and I want to sell high. That's as simple as we can make it. But how do I know when I'm low? How do I know when I'm high? And also, how do I know where I'm actually going to buy and or sell? Okay. And just FYI, as I do want to just put this out there, everything that any live session that we do in our room, always recorded. You, as a member, of course, you have full access to go back and review those at any time. So anything that I say here is on recording. If I tell you that we did something, rest assured we did. If I tell you we didn't, rest assured we didn't. And of course, as a member, like I said, you can feel free to go back and review the information at any time. So over here, we were preparing ourselves for a selling opportunity. Let's look at the reason why. And we need to understand the software first. So if I look up here, I'm going to hover my mouse over a primary zone menu. If I move to the right, we can see secondary zone menu. And then we have our tools, order inputs, as well as our user inputs. So the user inputs, that's that user interface. Really no need to go into that right now. What I want to focus on are the zones alone. The primary zone there is set to, in parentheses, default. Default simply means that we're using the time period of the chart. So if I go back here, I'm going to toggle those on. Now I'm toggling my active zones on. Active zones are going to be zones that remain active, meaning they have not been violated or traded through. So if I go ahead and toggle those on, you're only going to see those to the right side of the chart. Why? Well, because none of them have been traded through, right? They're the only ones that haven't. Eventually, every zone gets traded through. It's just a matter of time. Right? But the goal is, again, to hit it the first time. It's not to keep at it time and time again, because we're typically going to fail eventually. And that's just based on order flow logic. I'm sure most of you are already aware about that. But I'm not interested in that, right? Because I don't have any trade signals over here. What I'm interested in is actually back here. I want to see, what was occurring at that time and how we knew to participate. So if I go back here, we have what's also called our, our historical zones. Historical zones are the exact opposite of active. That means that they have indeed been violated or traded through, and we then store them in a different database so that we can go back, fully back testable, of course, all of that good fun stuff. So I'm going to toggle those on for you. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we can toggle one or both. So let's go ahead and just toggle both. I don't think there's really a need to do individually, because I just want you to get a whole concept here. All right. Now, I can grab an arrow perhaps, and maybe it'll make it easier to help you guys see. So we're getting this red signal here because, as you can see, we're coming up into this red zone. So the color scheme that we're going to be using, red for supply, green for demand. I do want you guys to know why the colors are not as bright. My sincere apologies. Red and green is going to be for the smaller time frame zones, which I've not shown you yet. The larger time frame, remember those default, which is set to the daily chart, okay? Those are going to be yellow and gray. So if you can see the real time ones over here, let me scroll over, okay? You can see a bright gray zone up here, bright yellow zones down below. So I'm going to scroll back, and now you're saying, well, that's not gray, that's not yellow, but it actually is. What we do is, I'm so sorry, guys and gals. We do tend to get some phone calls in the middle of meetings here and there. So what we're doing with our software, though, is we never want to continuously trade a zone. So we implemented an automation factor there. We say anytime a zone is retested, just simply reduce the opacity, right? Make that more transparent. So the more transparent a zone is, that means the more time it got tested. And so it just essentially becomes irrelevant for us. All right. Okay, great. So that's why we're looking at this. Now, what I want you guys to realize about how we actually do this, as I said, the red and green signals tell us, okay, here it is. It's time to prepare for a buying or selling opportunity. If red, that means sell. If green, that means buy. So as you can see, there's a red one here, and we were prepping ourselves for sell opportunities at that particular time, okay? However, it is a big zone, right? And I can venture to guess, and there's probably some of you, I know a lot of you have very large accounts, probably much larger than mine, and that's okay too. But maybe you do trade the daily zones. If that's the case, hey, it is what it is, right? You got the zone, you're ready to go, just kind of determine where you want to buy or sell. I could show you some very cool things about how to do that. We can utilize that order flow analysis to determine and refine exactly where we enter. Having said that, that's not the way that we actually do it, okay? That's where our secondary zones come in. I just want you to see, hovering the mouse there, those are set to 240-minute zones. So 4-hour zones are going to be utilizing here. What we're saying is this is a larger picture supply level, but I simply don't want to risk the entirety of the zone because I can't, perhaps most of us can't afford to. I mean, that is a large, especially on the futures market. So it's a very high dollar value there. So what we can then do is go to our secondary zones. And as I said many times, I like to keep my chart very clean. So in any given time, all you're really going to see is the active zones on my chart. But for showing you guys this and back testing purposes, of course, I would go back and toggle them on. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go down and I'm going to toggle on my historical 4-hour zones. So essentially, before I begin here, I would be looking for selling opportunities in this location, specifically the higher we go into the location. Couple things I'll tell you really quickly. Number one, I want to see the zone, again, as high into the area as possible, because that means it's very close to the origin. Okay. Number two, I'm only going to take two shots at it, right? So if there's 3, 4, 5 zones, so on and so forth, I'm not going to take all of them. I'm going to do my best to pick the ones closest to the origin, and I'm going to go for those. Okay. So when I toggle these on, don't worry, you're going to see, I'm going to show you some really cool stuff here in just a moment. You're going to see a bunch of zones right now. Every zone that you see, and by the way, note how all of these zones are very respected, right? So if you can notice, very few of them are actually a bright color, and that's because most of them have been tested and price traded away. And that's your 4-hour zones, right? So don't worry right now. I know the chart looks like a hot mess, but it's gonna simplify itself here in just a moment. I'm gonna show you, as I said, some pretty cool tools, the way that we've actually been able to automate that. So number one, let's focus on this red signal here, right? So you can see up into the area, we do have a couple of supply zones. That's 4-hour supply zone. So I could absolutely go up there and initiate sell positions. Now, for disclosure purposes and what you would actually see on our recordings, in this particular case, we were reading the market at that specific time, and we had a different read on the market. And I'm going to show you the reason we did that, because we did it again today. Okay, so it's not anything that we just guessed at. We did it for a very specific reason. And I'm just going to tell you, we skipped over this area here, and we actually looked at selling the market. There was a great selling opportunity right here. So that's the one that we ended up taking. But again, let's not focus on that right now. I just don't want you guys to think that I'm showing you something that we didn't talk about at this way back when, right? So this was back in March of last year. So all intents and purposes, let's say that we didn't focus on any of that. Ultimately, we have 2 selling opportunities there, smaller time frames, so minimal risk. This of course is for swing trade, a little bit larger of trading. I get that. Same thing is applicable on the smaller time frames as well. We would just alter those time frames. So here, again, we have those 2. Well, as you can see, those fail, and we can get really upset about that, or we can just move on, knowing that what we do works very well, and we can continue doing that and progressing forward. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to toggle those off, because at that time, whether I took those or not, ultimately I've failed, right? So I lost money there. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And then we move forward in time, and we get this green signal going all the way down into this lower zone here, okay? So if there is a level in through here, perhaps we could take that level, okay? So maybe there's a zone right in through here. Let's look at that. Okay, but ultimately we're looking at this location down here as we have 3 back-to-back green signals. So again, the same thing is applicable. What we do is we turn on our smaller time frame. Okay, we turn on our 4-hour levels or 60-minute levels. I do love the 60-minute chart. And as you can see, price comes down, really bounces right off the top of this, but then eventually it declines through that. So you don't get multiple retests of this, thus the reason you're seeing a bright yellow zone. And if you notice, that's the only zone that you see that is bright yellow, okay? So I just do want to bring that to your attention to let you know that some of them do fail, okay? But most of them do not. So we come down and we test this smaller time frame, we bounce up from it, and again, we go down and initiate the green signal, which is where we're ready to become the buyer. So here's where we go, okay, well, kind of hold the phone for a second, because this is that daily area, again, quite large. So what I'm looking to do is mitigate my risk, reduce it, right? No one really wants to risk more than they have to. So multiple ways we can go about doing that. Specifically, it would be to use the smaller time frame zones at that particular location. So what I can now do, I can go over here and toggle, actually I already have, so I can toggle my larger time frame zones off to clean it up just a little bit. And you can see how we're left with a smaller level down here. So I literally can keep it so simple as to put a limit order down here. Of course, that would be a buy limit order. And my expectation is now that I would move to the upside. So as long as I'm getting these buy signals, okay, I'm looking for the demand levels. You can see another one happened here. So that's in preparation mode. If I'm coming down into this area, I'm getting ready to purchase the market. I just need to know where to do it. And that's the answer, smaller time frame location, all right? So I'm going to go back up here, and I'm actually going to toggle on my larger time frame, and I'm going to toggle back off that smaller. Again, let's keep the chart as clean as possible, you know. So we progress in time here. Notice that we're not getting any signals for quite some time, all right? Now that's a good thing, right? Because you're already long from the bottom. So we want to stay in that position as long as we possibly can. Notice right here, we get a red signal. This is saying, hey, okay, well, hold on. We're prepping to sell now. So, okay, well, that's great, but how do I do that, right? Again, this is a very large area to go, you know, selling into. So what we can do is go toggle our historical. In this case, I'm only going to toggle supply on because, you know, essentially that's all I'm looking for. So now I'm toggling on the supply areas. And as I said, we come up. So let's look at the top two levels here, because I mentioned earlier, we only like to take 2 opportunities at the location. Number one, we hit this level, right? So that's a smaller time frame level. And we decline away from that for about 2 days, right? So as you can see, we hit the area, takes us 1-2 days, we drop away from that. And while it doesn't look large, I get it, rest assured it is, because these are daily candles. So basically it dropped for 2 straight days and ended up, you know, down here, all right? But what we then do is we say, okay, well, you know, either it's going to produce a large move or it isn't. So maybe we implement a strategy of moving our stops to break even plus commissions. You know, again, we have to have a target destination. I can tell you definitively this did not reach our target. So we simply move on to the next, right? There's our next smaller time frame location. And as you can see how the accuracy of the zones, we come up, we test it, and immediately start to drop away. All right. In this case, it actually works out extremely well, dropping all the way back down to larger time frame demand. So we would initiate a profit target just before that area. And just to kind of throw this out there, generally speaking, the way that I like to do it is, you know, kind of bigger moves in the market. So if I'm going to enter at a larger time frame location, I'm going to reduce my risk to the smaller time frame locations, but then I'm going to look for that big, large reward all the way back to the opposing larger time frame demand or supply, depending upon the direction, right? Okay, so that's how that works. I can then move forward. We get another red signal over here. Now, remember what I said earlier. This zone right here has already been tested, and we actually spent quite a bit of time there. So I would not be, you know, initiating a position over here, even though, okay, I get it. A lot of times, you know, people say, yeah, but it worked out really well. Well, I do understand that, but as a methodical, you know, we try to approach it as methodical as possible. It just doesn't matter. It becomes irrelevant because, as I said earlier, if you have a trade plan but you can't follow it, you got a problem, right? So here we go up, we test that level again, make a higher high into it, and we have a pretty substantial drop away for 2 days yet again. All right. So again, I just want to, I see it, I understand this works out great, but ultimately we would not be initiating that position. Okay. All right. So progressing in time, I do want to just circle back and show you guys one little cool feature, because the chart, it kind of still looks messy, doesn't it? And I don't like that. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't like that. And actually, at the suggestion of one of our members, thank you so much, we implemented an internal level option. So if I go up here into my secondary zones, we have zone controls. Notice this right here, internal zones. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to flip that off, right? Now, what I'm doing is exponentially cleaning up the chart, and I'm saying I really don't want to look at zones that are not at my larger time frame locations, and therefore we remove them from the price chart. So long as the zones are at our larger locations, absolutely, that's what you're still going to see on the price chart. Okay, so we'll keep progressing here in time. And remember, I only have on my supply zones right now because that's all I need to see, because I'm getting red signals. So we're going to move from this and we're going to move over here. All right. If you notice in this level here, we do indeed have our levels there as well. So this is the first smaller time frame zone that you come into at the larger time frame location. In order to make that easier for you guys to see, let me do this, please. There you go. So you can see that this is the larger picture area. I'm simply going to turn on our smaller time frame supply. Okay, so there's your first level that you come into. And as you can see, we go up, we touch the level, respect it extraordinarily well, and decline away from that pretty exponentially there for several days, in fact. All right. So again, keeping this stuff very, very simple. As we move forward in time, the same thing becomes applicable here. We have another red signal. Notice where our smaller time frame zone is. So if we really go in and dive into that, you'll see that we hit that level and also declined away for 3 days. Okay. So again, just remember that these are daily bars we're seeing. So if the move looks small, rest assured it is not. That's a very big move. 3 days worth of a downside is very big. Okay, or at least for short-term intraday and potentially swing traders. Okay, so that's what you're seeing there. Now we're going to progress a little bit forward here, and notice over here I get a green signal. Okay, now the green signal, why in the world, I want you to ask yourself a question, okay, why in the world did I not get a green signal? Because there's a beautiful demand level, right? So why am I not getting that? The whole concept, the premise, if you will, of not supply and demand trading, not any other type, but generally a philosophy of investing, right? What does it tell you? Boy, oh boy, I'd love to have a conversation with Warren Buffett, right? I bet you he would keep it so simple. He'd say, yeah, I buy when the value's right and I let it go. I'm not speaking for him. Boy, what a rock star, right? But ultimately, he's very simple. To my knowledge, he buys value and he lets it run. He buys when things are cheap and he literally just holds on to it. Okay, so this is implementing that grid on the right side of your chart. Look at the area in which that is in. Okay, so this is telling me, hold on, sure, we could take maybe a short-term, play off that if it's with the direction and all that, but you're in a location where you should specifically be looking for sell positions actually. Okay, so we should be doing the opposite of what most people may or may not think coming into this level. And that's the reason you're not seeing a signal there. Also, a beautiful level here, right? Already traded that multiple times, so we would disregard that anyway. But the point is, it's a wonderful looking level, all right? As we come over here, unfortunately, we just simply don't get the signal we're looking for. There's a reason for that. So we're looking to buy low and sell high, remember? So the reason that we're getting this green signal here is because look at where this particular level lines up. Notice that we're now down in the lower two grids, right? Okay, so we're down in the lower two grids. And just so you guys know, this would be adapted back at that time, so you'd actually most likely be in the very bottom grid. Okay, but again, the altitude grid here is, it's holding on to actual price as we speak. Okay, but the point is, at that time, the grid would have been right in through here, would have been the low, and you would have been very, very close to the absolute low. So this was our, we actually had 2 trading opportunities come into this. I actually presented, I think, in the room about if there's any, I don't really know, I can't see the question, but if there's any of our members in the room that are actually here today, I'm sure there are, you guys can confirm or deny this. Again, everything I say is there. So we did have 2 opportunities down here, but yet we disregarded these up here. We said, no, this is not an area I'd look to buy, but this specific location right here is. Same thing, we approached it the same way. What we did was we go here and we then toggle on, I can toggle off the supply, I don't need it anymore, and I can toggle on the demand. So these 2 demand levels, number 1 here, it absolutely was a trading opportunity presented in the room, and then this was our second one as well. Now, if I go into that, what you'll see, and if memory serves me correctly, I believe this one moved up like over 70 points. It was huge. It was a very, 2-day move up, so on and so forth. Again, you can see the accuracy of the zones there. So we hit our zone, rally to the upside, very, very good day, a couple of days, and then we decline back through that, and notice there we hit our lower level, and then off to the races we go. Okay, so that's that green signal. We're prepping ourselves to buy. Where do we buy? Smaller time frame zones. At that particular time, we're saying, okay, well, I'm in a long position. I'm very willing to hold on to that. So we actually discussed placing our profit target way up here. That was a very large trade. And then we did the exact opposite. We started prepping ourselves for selling opportunities. As you can see here, we were coming into a larger time frame supply level. So we do the same thing all over again. I'm going to go toggle off my demand. I'm going to toggle on my supply. Again, we had 2 levels coming into this location. We will indeed take it up to 2 times. Number 1 just ultimately fails, right? That does happen. But what I want you to focus on, and I always try when I'm doing the whole mentor thing, right, which is, you know, here and there, but when I'm doing that, I try to help people see, look, I get it. I understand it's very unfortunate when we lose money. It's just very frustrating, this and that. But what we're really doing is we're saying, okay, if I get 5 out of 10 and I'm taking huge reward and very small risks, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? And please, guys, I think probably many of you would agree with me, but I mean this in just a complete humble opinion. From my experience, and I've dealt with a lot of traders throughout the context of my years, but I would say that the best way, I'm not gonna say the only way, but the best way to create longevity in a trading career, I just don't know much of another way to do it, right? There are absolutely scalpers out there that can trade circles around me, okay? And not that that matters to me, but I mean, congratulations to them. I think it's wonderful. I certainly couldn't. But that being said, what I found across the board, all the traders and the successful traders that I've come to find and so on, they have found success and longevity by large reward, okay? Because it sets you up and it doesn't matter when you lose. So that's how we approach the markets. I just want to throw that out there, keep that very, make sure that's very clear, okay? So here we go. We have this, again, just it trades right through. It's not very common, but indeed it does sometimes. However, we hit this upper level here. And as you can see, that one certainly doesn't. So think about it like this. We are entering a position way down here, okay, on a very small, let me turn on that demand zone again, just so you guys can kind of see both at the same time. So here's what we're doing. We're saying, look, this is where I want to be the buyer, and I'd love to trade it, back up to this location. Okay, great. So it moves far in favor. And of course, protecting that investment. So there's no way to lose money on this trade. Ultimately, you may not make your huge winner chicken dinner, but at least you're not going to lose money. We go down, we hit our next level, and what do you know? We go all the way up and grab our enormous profit target. And again, I think on this trade, it ended up equating to approximately a 10 to 1, something like that. And then we did it all over again, right? So we're looking at shorting the markets here, same thing. Trading it all the way back down to our larger time frame demand. So there again, you end up with approximately a 10 or greater to 1. It was very nice, back to back. Let's keep progressing in time. We have a long opportunity. Now, for disclosure purposes, we actually, or I should say, did not point this out. In fact, I said, I am not going to be the buyer here. I wish, hindsight's 20/20. I wish I would have, but ultimately, my anticipation was that price was going to decline. So in the room, I stated, yeah, I get it, but we've already tested this level. I've mentioned that to you guys before. And unfortunately, I'm just not going to take the buy side of this market. And in this case, because I had that anticipatory move to the downside, I did indicate that I would be a willing buyer up here on a second retest of this level. Okay, so as we keep moving forward in time, again, I missed this entirely. That's okay. I can't be perfect. I wish I was. However, we did not miss this up here, right? So we come up into the level, and you kind of have that same scenario, right? A couple zones there, could take both, not more than 2. So we have that. One fails, the other one, again, off to the races we go. But this one did exactly what I anticipated. I just anticipated it on the first decline, right? So I thought we were going to do this way back here, but we didn't. We actually went up, and then we decided to decline. All right, so I'm going to kind of move fast and just conclude with this. You can see how we get some more buy signals right down in through here, but just please remember what I said. Our anticipation was to the downside, and these levels had already been tested multiple times, okay? So I'm certainly not going to go against the market in a level that's been tested multiple times when I have the exact opposite bias in the market. All right. So again, a couple cool things about that. We can toggle those zones on or off, and just keep things very simple, because the more you clutter up your chart, in my opinion, the worse off it can get. Even though you have a lot of smaller time frame opportunity. So if I were to, for all intents and purposes, go back and turn off my larger time frame zones, what I could do is apply these on, say, a 30-minute chart, right? So I could put my 4-hour zones as the larger time frame, and then I could put my 30-minute or maybe even my 15-minute as the smaller time frame zones. So I would indeed see most of these zones. And again, I just want to bring your attention to how well they are respected. You can see the zones, they don't typically fail, right? You come down, hit one, it rallies, and then eventually goes through it. So that's what you guys are seeing. Simplicity, in my opinion, at its best, right? We don't want to overthink these things. We want to look for large reward, very small risk, as you all know. Again, I'm not saying anything that everyone else doesn't say. At least the professional, traders out there, I believe they would, most of them at least would agree with that. But that's it. That's what you're seeing. And I certainly wish there's more over here, of course. But I just don't have time I don't want to keep these guys too late. I know they're super busy. And I think it's about some time for some Q&A. Again, here's the levels over here, though, that you can see. Now, I do want to bring you guys attention real quick to real-time price. I always like to do this if I can, okay? Note that we did get some red signals over here. I will tell you guys, I did short the market right here. That was a great trade, and then so it was approximately right at 30 points to the downside. It was great, but then I was saying, okay, well, I'm only going to take this as a very short-term trade because we've just been here so many times, but it just couldn't get through that 2,800. So I said, look, hey, it is what it is, right? I'll take a short-term entry. So I took a short trade there, and it worked out great. And then I see that we're taking out some of the support. So I actually attempted another short opportunity in through here, thinking that, well, hey, what if it goes back into a downtrend? Now that one failed. Okay, it was fine. It was small. So up here, this was an intraday trade. It was about a 10 to 1, right at a 10 to 1. The loss was very small, so that takes you back down to an 8.5 or a 9 to 1. You get the picture there. And of course, we just completely disregarded this over here, this red area. And our anticipation now is do be aware of that 2,900 area. Okay, this is going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks, but we are very honed in on that. And very quickly, what I'm going to do, Keith, are we okay, man? Do I need to rush and kind of conclude here, or are you okay for a few more minutes?
Personally, I'm fine. Yeah, whatever works for you and the audience. Yeah.
All right, you rock, man. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through. I told you I would do this, and I hate to say I'm going to do something and not do it. So let me look at it like this. All right, number one, over here, again, there's a 4-hour zone. It came up, traded it, and huge decline out of that zone. I'll show that to you over here real quick, as a matter of fact. 10 days, we're gonna need more than that. So let's do 50 days here, and I'm just gonna pop this up to a 4-hour chart, is what I was looking for. Yeah, okay, so here's that 4-hour level. You just saw it a minute ago on the daily chart, but this is that 4-hour level. So as you can see, we dropped away. Now we were absolutely looking for a short opportunity. As a matter of fact, I was in a free event the other day, a couple days ago, and I actually had the order placed, so I let them see that or what have you. But as unfortunate as it is, I was looking at a small, a smaller level, not on the 4-hour chart. I was looking at a little bit smaller time frame, and price came back up, and it missed me by, I think, a point or two. It was just, that is what it is. And then a huge decline away. So, again, that whole hindsight's 2020, right? Can't go back and redo it. But the point is, they're very well respected. Now, let's come in and look at it today, okay? I want you guys to focus on the way that we approach the market. And if we scrunch up our chart here, let me do something real quick. I just want to make sure that I have the correct template loaded. By the way, I'll pop up, this is our user interface. I'm going to go ahead and just simply load a template, okay? And that template is going to be STF. I'm going to go ahead and load that. Click apply. All right, and there we go. So what am I missing here? One second. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I completely missed it. All right, so having said all of that, this morning we were coming down. Yesterday, I'll show you a trading opportunity that we discussed, not for myself, I don't generally take action at these locations. I'm simply waiting for a short. As a matter of fact, I had one other short. I took it, it was weird. I took it last night actually, and I generally don't do that, but I have very little time for trading. So, you know, kind of take what you get if and when you get it. But what I'll show you is I shorted the market right here. So it's a nice move down and all that. But what I want to focus on is the fact that I anticipated price could potentially go lower, right? It's not that I expected it so much as I just said, hey, what if, you know, what if it goes down into a downtrend, I would love to take part in the absolute beginning of the move. So my anticipation was just, hey, just kind of hold on to that, you know. And then we look at this area right here. Now I'll show you the area that I did discuss yesterday. Again, not for myself because we're at a location where I just simply don't want to be the buyer anymore. But pointing it out for short-term, you know, opportunity, and that was right here. So this area right here was the 22 specifically. It was 28.22. Yeah, 28.22 was a short term from yesterday. You can see the large rally up that we got from that. It's actually abrupt. I mean, it was right after the Fed, you know, just huge, huge move up there. And then so today we come back in, right? We come in and we're already shorting the market. Looks like we may be forming some downward resistance. We're up in a great location for selling and so on and so forth. So I decided to hold on to that. I ended up taking a very small profit on it. Obviously, I was up about 15 points or so at one time, but then ended up taking very small profit because it didn't drop further. So I did not look at this as a buying opportunity. A lot of, you know, some of the members in the room did. Kudos to them. They did a great job. But I don't, you know, again, look at this level. It's already been tested. It spent a lot of time there. A lot of things about that level, so I disregarded it as, again, I don't like to buy up into larger supply. So watch out for this zone right here, guys. Picture perfect. Zone looks great. It's very classic, 28.54, 28.46 quarter. Could be a little retest into that for a shoot to the upside. But again, I want to caution that because, well, because of this, okay? So very, 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 very cautious up here. Active. Okay. I just want you guys to be fully aware of where we're coming in. This is an advanced zone. There is an option in our software for conservative or advanced zones. We're gonna, you know, as a matter of fact, it's a new implementation. But we did that so that beginning traders can start with a conservative style of zone, and then we have our advanced zones as well. And so again, be very cautious. We're coming up in that 28.68 3/4, 2900 mark. I personally am looking for some shorting opportunities up there. All of this is, of course, for educational purposes only. I'm not a CTR broker, so I can make no recommendations whatsoever. But I sure do enjoy sharing my experience and sharing what I would potentially do myself, and that's what I'm looking for. Maybe a pretty good move up into the pungency of this area, but definitely got an eye on that 2900 for some short-term potential reversals up there. So maybe paying attention to that. All right. So we walked through a bunch of stuff today. Thanks to the guys at Shark Indicators, they've allowed us to come in and spend a good amount of time with you all. Why don't I now take some time and just answer some questions and, you know, take it from there.
All right, very cool. Thanks, Will. All right, I'll just go through some of these. I'll warn you guys, for whatever reason, some have come in and then disappeared. So if you don't have your answer or your question answered, just make sure to reach out to Will or Shark Indicators, depending on what it was about, and we'll be happy to move forward from there. So Anthony was asking, he says, I assume the zone on the right is dynamic. If so, how often does it change or update, I assume?
I'm going to throw out an assumption here. I hate to do that typically, but I assume that by zone, you're referring to the altitude grid. And so this big grid over here, it adapts constantly, you know, so, well, by constantly, I mean the price action dictates when it adapts. Like right now, for example, it's not going to do anything. It's going to stay exactly as it is right now until we, you know, go up and make a higher high, or for all intents and purposes, we go down and make a lower low, right? So yeah, it's going to adapt when price action dictates that it needs to, and at that point, it will track the new structure highs, it will track the new structure lows, and so on. Now, one of the things I mentioned to you guys earlier in this question, guys and gals, trust me when I tell you I have not even begun to scratch the surface as far as functionality. But with the altitude grid alone, I did mention that there's multiple different avenues that we could take for all the data points. The altitude grid, notice right here, there's actually multiple different ways we can determine the altitude. And one of the ones I'm going to show you here is the zones. So if you notice, it just adapted to the larger time frame supply demand zones. We do this for very short-term trading, right? So think about it this way. Overall, I can utilize the altitude to determine if I'm buying low or selling high, right? But if I'm trading intraday, very short term, don't I need to do the exact same thing, right? So anytime I'm getting up here close to this larger time frame supply, I do not want to be the buyer into that. So the grid will help you to do that. Conversely, it's showing you where the green is, right? So I would want to be maybe prepping myself for the sell, but at minimum, I'd want to be stopped. I would no longer want to be buying up here. And again, inverse to that would be I would no longer want to be selling down here and potentially prepping for buy. So we do have multiple different options. But yeah, so what you're looking at there, we have trend as well as structure, things like that. So different options. We teach you exactly how to use all of them, by the way. But yeah, it's going to adapt when new structures are made.
All right. So we had a couple of sort of different variations on this question, but a couple of people noticed all those the variety of signals that you had on the chart. I think you gave some pretty good clarity about the fact that you're not taking a trade for every single bloodhound signal that you're seeing there. Sure. But at least one person was concerned about seeing so many. But I assume you're definitely not taking a trade just because you see a bloodhound signal.
Correct. Well, I should say yes and no. So remember, the exception there is we're not taking every one of them because, like, let's do this real quick, right? So let's go back and look at this, for example. And what I would also say, though, that when you mentioned that you're seeing a bunch of them, I would probably maybe try to think of that in a different way, because let's think about the context here, right? You're literally talking about over a year's worth of data. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, up to 9. That's only 15 signals in an entire year. You see what I'm saying? So I do hear what you're saying, but I would say in the context, that's actually not a lot of signals. Having said that, you're absolutely right, though. We do not look at executing every one of these. So let's go back and toggle this on real quick, and I'll just kind of display the ones. Right? So for all intents and purposes, we would have potentially been the seller here and we would have lost some money, right? Kind of deal with that. It is what it is. And then we would have turned around and been the buyer here and we would have simply held that position. And the way that I approach it, the way that we do in the room, we really have no reason to fully exit the market because it was clearly making higher highs and higher lows. So technically we could have held this trade and followed the major structures in the market all the way up to here and then removed. So when it breaks like that, then we would have completely removed ourselves out of the trade. So technically here, we could have entered one time and disregarded every one of these. But generally you're not going to do that because most people don't hold a trade for a year. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we have one here and then we have one down here. We don't need all three of these. We just need one because we saw where that smaller location was. So we say, okay, here's one that fails. Here's one that just works out forever and ever. Amen, it seems like. Here's another one that works out very well. This one we disregard. So let's do it like this. Let's go here and let's say yes, yes. I'll just do it like this. No, no. Yes. No. Yes. No. Yes. 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 Now remember this one, I explained that earlier. So we're going to say no. Yes. And no. And no. Okay, so over the context of all of that, I do hear what you're saying, absolutely. We would have actually only ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, and out of those 8, this one back here fails, obviously. So one of them fail, that's the only one. Yeah, now understand, please guys, I never mean to come in here and make things look better than they are. This is literally just what we, we discussed each and all of these opportunities, but way back in real time before they ever happen. So I feel very confident and comfortable with doing that. But yeah, from time to time, they're definitely going to fail. Okay, so I would be prepared for that, just like any trading strategy. It's all about risk to reward, though. And that's what you'd end up with. Great question, man.
Yeah, you're always very, very humble, acknowledging that nobody's perfect, including you.
Oh, goodness, yeah. Especially, us. I mean, definitely. No one's, it would be nice, though, right?
Yeah. Let's see. And do you have any thing that you can share about the criteria you use to generate the bloodhound signals? Do you keep that close to the chest, or anything you can share on the inside of that?
No, I mean, look, I'm happy to share. So we'll go through, and do remember that this template in itself is in the installer as well. So yeah, no, look, I'm not I don't come in here and try to hide stuff and all that. At the end of the day, if I could help every single one of you in here, I would, and I believe that every one of you probably do the same for me. So let's look at it, what we're doing. I'm going to just kind of pop up here real quick. And maybe I'll expand the chart, right? So let's do this where we can kind of find some white space. There we go. Okay, so what I'm doing is we're essentially taking over here. Remember, let's pretend for a moment that that's that altitude grid, all right? What we're doing is we're saying if I find a larger time frame demand, in this case it'd be daily, right? So if I'm finding a larger time frame daily demand zone in the bottom two grids, okay? In the bottom two grids, if I find a daily demand zone down here, then I'll execute a long position if I have an opportunity on the smaller time frame. So number one, I would say, okay, great, here's my daily demand zone. And then I would look interior to that, right? Maybe let's just say that we have like 2 or something to that extent, okay? So yes, those will become. But let's say that I come up here and I have a demand zone, okay? I'm gonna disregard that because it's just simply not in the right location. So what we're doing is very simply saying, I will take demand if in the lower areas of our altitude, I will indeed go up here and take supply levels, right? So we may have a great supply level up here. Also, let's say that you just have 1 in that one, or maybe you have 2 or whatever. But again, we're looking to sell up here and we're looking to buy down here. So that's really what you're seeing here. Again, very simple, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. We're just trying to make smart investments and we're trying to hold on to those winners, because think about it this way. I've had so many people ask me, and I've given myself a hard time. I mean, you get the picture, right? But what if there's that whole what if? And now don't do this hindsight 2020 thing. I'm saying be literal about it. For all intents and purposes in the live room right now, just like I was doing today, I had a short position and I told everyone, I said, look, what if this thing drops? That means I literally caught it from the top and I could make more in a single trade. I don't want to talk about money because I never promote the ability or lack thereof to make money. It's nothing to do with that. But hypothetically, in one trade, I could literally not work again for 6 months. Who knows? Like, think about it this way. Again, I mentioned this to you. I'm trying to be transparent. I have one position. That's all I have currently. And it's, on the spiders. And I bought it right down here. I'm literally still holding that. Okay. So I know that it seems like, yeah, but I have a small account and so on. It can still be done on a small account. That's why we use the smaller time frame zones. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hold on to our position. And if you think about it this way, if it's still giving me money, then why would I stop taking it? So again, simple and effective. I want to buy low, sell high. So that's the very basic concept that you're seeing here.
Cool. And you may have covered some of these other questions. I did have to step away for a minute, so excuse me if they're repeats of what you said. But
no worries.
Can the Bloodhound template only take the fresh zones entries?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's wonderful. So I told you guys I was excited to get in here with you guys. I knew it. We were going to come across some wonderful tech savvy questions and so on. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. So we have implemented tags. It's like supply and demand zone tags for each different zone type. So yes, the simple answer is yes. Now another thing I'll show you is, again, I wish I had days to talk to you guys. I just simply, there's so much, but let's look at the question you're asking. There's a setting right here. It's called maximum zone retest, right? So let me get off the Bloodhound chart for just a second, because you know how it is when you make a change to Bloodhound template, you have to, in ours, we'd have to reload and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna go over here to this chart, and I'm gonna show you what I mean, okay? So if I go over here, I'm gonna open up my settings, I'm gonna go to the primary zones, I'm gonna set this to a value of 1, right? Now, what I'm saying here is I only wanna take, or better yet, I only wanna see zones if and when they've never been tested, okay? However, if they get tested one time, remove that zone and consider it historical. So let's go ahead and apply that. lots of bells and whistles, by the way, guys. Lots of stuff that built in here. And if you guys, real quick, hey, Keith, do me a favor, or maybe I can post this, but I wanted to share something. Let me bring it over here in just a moment. But Keith, if you'll go ahead and share this link, let me see if I can post it to you at least.
Yeah, do you have the chat panel? Because if you do, you can stick that in. There you go. Yeah, that went to
Yeah.
me. The drop down menu below, if you stick it to all, like the entire audience, then
Okay. Shark, I see organizers, Shark software, and same questions.
entire audience, all.
No, I don't see that as an option.
All right.
It must be I just maybe came in as I see I'm a presenter, but no worries. If you don't mind just sharing that link for me, just because of our limited time, we will cover, guys, any questions that you have in those free events. If you just want to sign up for those, I'll definitely cover. And don't leave just yet. I have something I want to run by you guys, so it may help. That being said, yeah, let's go back and turn this on now. Okay. Okay, now notice the difference. Remember before the zones extended, right? You know what I'm saying? They were extended. Like for example, you saw a big zone all the way over to here, right? But what I've done is I've disregarded that. So in Bloodhound, for example, you could set this to a value of 1, which means that you'll only take that first entry of any zone, right? So this one comes over here, drops, tests it, drop, you get the picture. So it stops when the zone has been tested and thereby no longer plots? Great question. Very good.
All right. Don is asking, is it possible for the signals to agree on 2 charts? For example, daily and 60-minute.
Is it possible to, I think honestly, I would say that's more of a Bloodhound question, really, because I don't know. I don't know if you can you have Bloodhound signals on 2 charts?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a Bloodhound template pull in data from 2 different charts. So you generally
Okay.
have Bloodhound run on the lower time frame, and then
Mhm.
say, I want one of my conditions to be coming from the daily, for example. But I wasn't sure if that was more geared towards the style of trading that you're talking about, or if it was just technical about Bloodhound. But
Yeah, either way, I'll answer it too. So I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be yes across the board, because obviously with you guys, you're capable of doing that, right? And so let me show you what PFA is capable of doing as well. That way we know, definitively speaking, that he or she can accomplish what they're looking to do. So let's say that we want to do that. Okay, let's go over to the 60-minute chart. And here, this is where it comes into to play, where, remember earlier in the presentation, I said one of my favorite things was the ability to have simultaneous zones functioning at times. So what you could do is maybe you do want to look at that smaller time frame, the 60-minute or whatever the chart is, right, the time period. If that's the case, you can absolutely do that, and you're going to see the exact same zones. So notice the big yellow, notice that big yellow zone here, right? That's actually a daily zone. It's not a 60-minute or anything to do with this time frame. So what you could do is just apply Bloodhound here on the smaller time frame chart. You're still going to get the exact same signals. You're just going to see the smaller time frame chart, pulling in the data from the opposing time frames. So that's definitely an option with us too.
cool. And the nice thing about Bloodhound, the whole idea is that if you have an idea of how to make use of Will's indicators in a different, more unique, more creative way that you've come up with, his indicators are fully accessible by Bloodhound. So you just learn how to use Bloodhound, and play with creating your own signals if you want to expand on that.
Wow, Keith, thank you for saying that. I honestly, like, that is, I wish I would have said that. You're absolutely right. We encourage it, right? So let me throw something out. I just had someone on the forum, as a matter of fact. I could probably bring this over. Let me do that real quick. So I could just bring this over. I want to give kudos to this member alone, right? And honestly, to all PFA members. I'm not just saying this, guys, but they're awesome. I mean, they're so willing to help each other. It's such a cool community. In my opinion. I am biased, right? So there's that, but you get the picture. Let's go over here though. What I want to show you is, so we have people introduce themselves and so on. So this was posted, looks like about 4 hours ago. I'm not don't pay attention to the name. I mean, I'm not trying to say, hey, whatever. Let's just skip down a little bit though, because I want to focus on this. So this gentleman here actually has his own little entry approach, so to speak. And he utilizes the zones to do exactly that, right? So what he's doing is pointing out how he uses the zones. Now he is in our training, so he knows everything that we do and all that good fun stuff. But he has a great way of doing it that he just utilizes. He implements his own style into it. So what Keith is saying, 100%. Don't think of this as a one all, right? It doesn't have to be one way. Let's circle back real quick to something that I discussed earlier in the presentation. And I am such a firm believer in this. Let's say that you have this silly, could be any trading strategy in the world. And let's not say silly. Let's use something that's very common. Let's actually use a moving average crossover. Okay. Now, what you're going to find, let's say you use like a 60-minute moving average crossover. Well, I can tell you from experience, that's not going to work out very well over time. You're going to have great periods of time where it works, and then a lot of times where it doesn't. So ultimately, longevity is probably not an option there. But if you do this, okay, if you implement our software and you take and very methodically look for that moving average crossover right here, right? So let's open that up a bit. Where was I at? Yeah, right there. So if you use that same exact moving average crossover that you're using, but you use it right here, when we've deemed it to be a good buying opportunity in a great location, et cetera, you're simply incorporating a very high probability way of using your own trading strategy. Think of it as just adding extensive probability, what you're already doing. And that's a very well said, Keith. Thank you for that.
Very cool. Yeah, that's the beauty of all these tools is we're just trying to give you some flexibility and make your life a little bit easier. But ultimately, if you have some ideas, yeah, go for it. Very cool. Thanks for the question, Don. George just asked. He just got here, and we're kind of closing up. Yes, you will be getting, and as long as you signed up with your real email, you will get the recording within a few hours after this ends. So. If you don't get an email for that, just check your spam folder, as always. Let's see. Craig is asking, let's see. Do nested zones have stronger validity if I'm looking at a D1 chart and the daily and weekly zones are nested?
At D1, you mean like a daily chart, I imagine. Can you repeat that question for me?
1D probably. Do nested zones have stronger validity if I'm looking at a daily chart or a D1 chart and the daily and weekly zones are nested?
Oh, I see. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're just doing it on smaller time frames, but absolutely. So if you have nested weekly and daily zones, man, I mean, yes, that would be very powerful. It's just given the fact that they're very large time frames. So yeah, to answer your question, very much so.
Sort of stronger confidence there.
Very strong combination, yeah.
Ness is asking, does the PFA suite generate alerts when the price touches a zone? I'm assuming that's what you do.
Correct, yeah. So if we bring this up right here, absolutely go into the alerts here. We have multiple, you can just kind of choose what alert you want. You can have an alert on zone touch, on a new zone forming, or on that line that I discussed earlier. You can also enable email alerts, put your email in there, that whole thing right there. So you can get email alerts on every one of them as well. And then basically the draw tool here is the PFA align alert. So I could go there and put a couple of alerts, and you would get both email and audible if you enable both of those.
Cool. And Bloodhound itself has all those same features as well. So if you're just creating Bloodhound templates as well, you can get the same types of alerts just on Signals too. So
nice. I'm gonna swap monitors here real quick because there's something I wanted to show before people start heading out. I did want to, again, I'm not a big, I'm not a big sales guy or anything. I'm not the best at it, I'll tell you that. But I have been asked several times to do it, and I do think it's worth doing to just offer it at least. I'm not going to push anyone. I never do push anyone to a sales, but if you're looking to join, now is the best time to do it for sure, because we don't generally offer these. The only time we do is in our wonderful partner events. Of course, if we perhaps if we do something with Keith and the guys at Shark Indicators, of course, we're happy to do that for you all. But I'm just going to kind of skip forward on the slide as I'm continuing to address the questions. So there's 2 slides that I want to go through, but I'll just kind of leave it on this one for a second until I finish up the questions. You guys feel free to read through that.
Yeah, just at a glance, that looks like a pretty good deal, especially if you don't offer that very often.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah,
we're getting pretty close to the end of the Q&A anyway.
Okay.
Kirk is asking, he's curious. I actually had one other question earlier about this regarding different bar types. Is there a reason why you wouldn't say possibly use Renko or any other candlesticks or any other bar types?
Nope, absolutely. You can certainly use those. This is just, it's a go-to, right? I'm sorry, I'm like moving my mouse over here as if I'm still showing. I was going to put it on a Renko chart, but yeah, to answer your question, you can use any of the bar types provided in NinjaTrader. So if you want to put it on Renko, you can put it on tick, volume, you name it, and you can absolutely do that. So again, this goes back to what Keith was saying, wonderfully represented by himself there, meaning that if you have something that I'll always tell people, if you have something that's working for you, if it's not broken, absolutely don't fix it. Of course, we can incorporate things to make it better, but don't try to fix it. In your case, I'm sure you're very successful. Our software will absolutely work on those bar types to fit into your style.
Very cool. Yeah, you just kind of give them advice and good tools, but not scolding them if they want to go a different, slightly different direction.
Oh, and definitely not. I even encourage it, man. I love all styles of trading.
And since we're in the sales mindset, I figure I can throw in my little plug. If you happen to buy Bloodhound through Will or anything like that within 30 days, if you come to us and you want our backtest Renko bars, if you check it out on our website and you're like, hey, that looks good, you do get $100 off because we count it as a bundle. So even if it's within 30 days, so just keep that in mind in the back of your head there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as he's mentioning that too, I'm not sure if there's more questions. We'll certainly do those. But I'm just going to move to that other slide because there is also an offer. So just real quick, note to self, this is in the event that you already own Bloodhound, right, or that you're a part of that already, then obviously you wouldn't want to buy it again, but if you're interested in our services in combination, then these are the packages here that we offer. Generally, the $19.99 we've reduced. You can see the cost and kind of what's included and everything. Shoot me a question, whatever you need, I'm here to help. But I am going to skip forward a little bit because we do have an offer in the event that you don't have Bloodhound already. And we're going to go ahead and discount that for you as well. So there's pricing, which would include both everything that you've seen on the previous slide, dependent on the yearly or the lifetime, right? And then also these include Bloodhound as well.
And Anthony's wondering, how long is this offer on for?
We generally go into it for 48 hours. So I would say that, let me look at the date. Yeah, we'll push it through the end of the weekend though, if you need to, no problem.
Cool. Yeah, jump on those questions. If after we're done here, if you come up with something you should have asked, make sure to reach out to Will or us and yeah, get you going.
Most definitely. And don't forget about those, the free events, guys. If you want to get involved in those, obviously they are free. There's no obligation, no nothing. We're not going to hit you with a bunch of, we never hit you with sales pitches. We don't do that. We only want you to come on board if you have made an educated decision and you're excited about it. We love that, but don't worry about any of that nonsense. just go in and we'll offer free events. We typically offer them as often as we can, every, maybe a couple of weeks, and so on and so forth. So you can ask questions. We're going to be in a room just like we are now. And so you can, we can cover much further or specific questions. So be happy to do that.
All right. And speaking of sales stuff, where do they go to get this deal?
Yes, very good question. So I tell you what, let me just do this. Let me bring this up. I'm just going to kind of walk them through it real quick, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So what we do is at the very top of the website here, if we hover over training and then we select PFA community, I'm just going to left click that, and it just pops up the 3 different options here. So we're focusing on the yearly and the lifetime. Obviously, we can't offer the course material and all that stuff in the monthly. But if you focus on the yearly and lifetime here, all you would need to do is click the subscribe button here. It's going to direct you to the page in which you simply create your account and register. And that's as easy as it actually is. So you can definitely do that. It's, again, very user friendly. If ever you have any issues and you're trying to get started and you can't for any reason, please don't worry, guys. We are here, and we try to do the best of our ability to always offer extensive customer support, or anything that you need, we'll be happy. Even if you need help setting up our software, of course, we will go in and do that for you via remote support. So yeah, just whatever you need. But this will be the easiest way. Just hover over training, select PFA community, and make your corresponding or respective choice there. When you do that, we're going to use this code right here, Bloodhound, as you can see it. And so all that you would need to do, once I've made my selection here, let's say I click buy now, I go to the next page, I'm going to register, generating my username and password, just like anyone, right? Just like you just simply creating a profile, if you will. And it's going to ask you what you would like to have as a username, and then your password. Don't worry, we don't store that information visually. We have no idea what it is. Very big on privacy. So when you create your profile, the following page is going to be your invoice page. So it will, of course, highlight your amount and the terms and everything, so that you know exactly what you're paying for. And then on that same page, that is to say the invoice page, you're going to scroll down and you'll see it. It's very easy. It's a discount. There's a discount code input field. So you would just input the code Bloodhound, and it will automatically reduce the price for you.
Very cool. And have a couple of people asking various questions regarding licensing for Bloodhound. Someone, for example, has Bloodhound, but he bought it years and years ago, just looking for where to go on our end. Just contact us through our website. So sharkindicators.com is we're the ones who actually make and sell Bloodhound. Contact us through there, and we'll get you set up. Bloodhound does come with a year of updates, so you may need to extend that a little bit, but it's really not bad at all. If you bought it years and years ago. Bloodhound and everything does work on NT8 as well. So to answer that question, can we have an offer for the software alone? I'm assuming you're talking about Will's indicators, Roberto, or are you talking about Bloodhound by itself? Okay, so he's saying yes, Will's. So he's wondering if there's a deal specifically for the software. I'm assuming that was the slide right before this one, right?
Actually, that was not the slide. That was just the PFA community alone, which it does include the software, right? So that's why we threw that. But to address your question, yes, I would be happy to accommodate that offer as well. So for everyone, here, it's not a problem at all. We can certainly do that. And my apologies, I didn't include that actually. But if you go here to software, and let's say that you don't need to be part of our community, or you don't want to, or you just want the software for any reason, hover over software and click supply demand zones. And if you, on that particular page, so if you decide to make the purchase, it's only $14.97. And I can't give you the exact math on that. Actually, I can. Give me just 1 second. I'll tell you the exact math on it. Yep. So that would only run you $11.97 instead of $14.97. Yes, you get $300 off of that. Absolutely, I'd be happy to accommodate that. And in fact, what I will do is generate that same coupon code. So just give me, 10 minutes, if you will, after the event or the session here is concluded, and I will also update that coupon code to reflect that for the software alone as well.
Cool. Roberta says thanks for that answer. And Roberta, for some reason that doesn't work. Don't give up. Contact him.
Yeah, and it will, man. Typically, I would say you shouldn't have any issues, but man, Keith is nailing it. He's hitting the nail on the head. Don't ever, ever, ever. If you have an issue, I would say, I always tell people the only wrong question is the one that you don't ask, and so we are here to help. Don't ever forget that for sure.
Will, this has popped up a couple of times. A couple of people have asked or kind of have inferred about the time frames. Like during a demonstration, you've used daily, and hourly or 4-hourly time frames. And NinjaTrader is probably more well known for very short time frame trading. Kind of scalpers or short profit taking type of futures traders.
Sure.
So you want to, I guess, whatever kind of information comes to mind, if you want to just kind of talk about the time frames and maybe expectations for the people in the room there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll be happy to address it. So it all comes down to this, guys and gals. I mean, everyone has their own opinion. Everyone has their own way of trading it. And as Keith had mentioned a little while ago, we've all talked about it a couple times. Don't change what you're doing. If you're doing something that's working, absolutely. We can add the software alone. We can add our training, all that good fun stuff. And that's perfectly fine. So I just want to, again, humbly say that everyone's a little bit different. And whereas some may trade the larger time frames, absolutely, like Zach is saying, that's a good point. A lot of people prefer the smaller time frames. We don't try to clone people. We're not trying to talk you into doing it one way or the other. So if you're trading the small time frames, I imagine the question is going to be, does our software work on small time frames? Absolutely. So it doesn't matter. Here's the difference, though, and I would be remiss if I didn't, discuss this, with you all. In our opinion, okay, and I think most people will tell you this, the larger time frames are always going to work better. Why? Well, they're just easier, right? Things are respected there because there's so much money involved. So here's the way that we approach it. Let's say you want to trade. I tell you what, is there any way? Can I pop over back? Does anyone need this here? I could switch back over to my chart real quick if you guys like. Everyone okay with that? Any problems?
I think so. I put the link into just your homepage.
Okay. And I tell you what, let me do.
Roberto says, yes, go ahead. He's excited.
Nice. I like you, Roberto. I like you, man. You got a lot going on. I like it. All right. And here's this. I'll get you those 2 links. All right. And there you go, Keith or Zach, and then let's go ahead back to the charts real quick. Find which one it was. There we go. Number 4. Okay. Let me know if you guys have up the chart again, please.
Yeah, I can see the chart.
Okay. All right, awesome. So let's go do this. Let's take a look at the 5-minute chart, right? And let's say, because this is, obviously that's a very small time frame. There's a video on our YouTube, channel, our YouTube channel. And as a matter of fact, sorry, real quick, I'll post you that too. So if you go, I think there's a video, it's called like 1 minute to monthly zones or monthly to 1 minute zones, something like that. But you can certainly view that. And the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. But the smaller the time frame you go, okay, the more zones you're going to find, which means ultimately the more trades you're going to have. But the smaller the time frame you go, generally speaking, people tend to fail a little bit more. And it's because they're not implementing the location. That is, in essence, that is the key to this, right? So I had a conversation yesterday with a great individual. And what I can tell you definitively is if you have a picture perfect demand level, but it's in the wrong location, a crappy looking, pardon my French, I'll be politically correct, but a horrible looking supply level would probably work, whereas that beautiful demand level will fail, right? So it really has a lot to do with that. That being said, without rambling, let me reduce my days. I don't know how much that's fine. I could have done that, but let's go down to a 5-minute chart, right? So let's just look at real time. I like doing it this way because, that way you know what you're looking at and I'm not trying to manipulate anything, okay? So here we go. This is today's price action, right? Just look at the last 2 or 3 hours, okay? So the zones work extraordinarily well. And that's, don't take my word for it. I'm not just trying to talk you into that. I'm saying, but the reality is they work very well, but it doesn't mean that every zone out there is going to work, right? So over here, we want to pay attention, remember, to the grid and to everything like that. And but if you look at the zones, you can see they're very well respected. When that supply zone forms, we touch it, drop away from it. The difference is going to be, and again, this is my opinion, your targets, right? I mean, if you're trading a 5-minute chart, the likelihood of you pulling out an enormous trade is going to be very few and far between, okay? But if you incorporate the larger time frame with that and you say, okay, look, I'm going to trade, I love trading the 5-minute chart because I can reduce my risk to almost nothing. There are specific things that we do to definitively and methodically determine a change in the direction of the market. So we would essentially take a 5-minute zone and we would go, okay, well, show me a larger, say for example, 4-hour, right? I would say, well, show me those 4-hour levels, and I would start approaching the market that way. That way I'm taking smaller time frame supply levels where my bigger money in the market is actually doing the same thing. So that increases the the probabilities tenfold. But yeah, again, this is today's price action, and you can see, you can see it for yourself, right? So we had a couple of levels here, and then we've had a couple of levels, up here in which we've just simply ranged in between. So again, if we incorporate what the larger money is doing, I mean, I'm going to throw, because I don't try to hide things, right? I'm going to throw this out here for you. A little bit about our methodology. It's very simple. We're looking to buy, at good, let's say low altitude with larger time frame demand, right? I'm not looking to buy on the larger time frame, but I am looking for that because I want to know that bigger money in the market's doing the same thing that I am. Then the smaller the time frame we go, I literally go down and I say, okay, I'm at a larger time frame demand level, I'm in low altitude. Everything about this says it's a smart investment, but the small time frame levels fail a little bit more often. So what I need to do is go find that level, but let it exceed the sellers in the market. And when it does, just like that, it's kind of just pulling the trigger, right, so to speak. And I'll show you exactly what we did right here, just so you guys see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, notice this area right here. Now we were looking to sell 2 days ago. I know a lot of people were looking to buy. We get, a lot of people tell us, hey, I got an email saying it's time to buy and everything. I said, well, look, let's maybe consider an alternative. Let's read the market, see if it's right or not. So we look at this and we go, okay, our determination was we actually wanted to be a seller 2 days ago, okay? And again, some of you may have saw the same thing we did. But what happens is we're in a location and we're trading on the small time frame, right? So the smaller we go, we require certain specifics. Right here, I left the room on that day because this didn't happen until about lunch or 1 o'clock or whatever it was. And I said very methodically, here's what I need to see in order to take a short position. There was only one thing. I needed to see the supply exceed the demand, okay? And once I saw that, here's what I did. Bam, just like that, okay? So when those sellers went down and exceeded the buyers, you just have to think common sense approach, right? Logic dictates that if we take out the buyers, that means that there are literally 0 buyers left back there. It's not possible, otherwise we would not have gone through them, okay? So in that regards, we look for that. Doesn't matter if you want to go on the very small time frames, but we would still take this same approach. We just do it at the appropriate locations, and that really increases the profitability or potential thereof. Hopefully that addressed the question. I hope I did.
Cool. Yeah, I think so. Craig is asking if he has further questions, which I'm sure he will. What is a good email? Should they just contact you through a form on your site or a specific email address?
If I could type today, there you go. I just put it into the You certainly can feel free to do it through the website if you'd like, or you can email directly to support@purefinancialacademy.com. Either way, doesn't matter.
And of course, anything specific to Bloodhound and actually learning to use that software on its own, which you'll, if you get it from Will, you'll still want to play around with that. Contact us. We do offer unlimited email support as well for our customers. So.
That's one of the reasons, by the way, guys. I love our relationship, working together with you guys, because it always seems we have these conversations. It always seems that we have very similar philosophies, and it's always nice working with you guys. I tell you that.
Same here. Yeah, it's always really hard to find someone who you always are worried about a snake oil in this industry, and it's we're always on the lookout for people who share similar philosophies and similar positive views about how to treat people. So it's good.
Oh yes, absolutely, guys. Did you for me? I'd be happy to address any of them.
And getting back to the sale there, Will, how long is the discount code good for?
So yeah, generally it'll be 48 hours, but I'm going to extend it through the end of the weekend. So yeah, it will be available until the beginning of next week. Let me go back to that just in case.
Sunday,
so
midnight Sunday, something like that, somewhere around there.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so there you go, guys. And again, the discount code is Bloodhound. So make sure.
It's simple, right?
Is it all lowercase? Is it case sensitive when they put the?
It is case sensitive, but it's exactly as you see it. They're all lowercase, just
all lowercase
one
Bloodhound.
word. Yep, absolutely.
One
and
word.
Did you say that's the same coupon code for the non-Bloodhound package as well?
Yeah, let me address that real quick too, guys. I'm glad you brought that up. If you guys are interested in purchasing, say this here, like if you want to purchase Bloodhound with the community, let me know, and I can easily just walk you guys through that. There's a little bit of a process, in which case we would provide, we have to essentially get your license, because Shark Indicators, Zach and these guys, Keith and all, they handle that, of course, because that's their software. But through our relationship, we will we'll get your license, we'll take care of all of that from them. So if you're interested in doing that, kind of bundling the two, let us know, and I can easily take care of that for you in a matter of just a couple minutes. It's no problem.
Very cool. And typically we issue after you submit it to us, Will, we typically can issue it within a few hours. But if it's middle of the night or something, don't be surprised if it takes a day to get your Bloodhound license or something.
Yeah.
Anthony mentioned that he already owns Bloodhound. There's been several people in here who have mentioned they have Bloodhound. Awesome. Thank you. Love to see current customers in here. And so he's sounds like he's planning or would only need the PFA offer. So that's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. We'd love to have you guys. Like I said, I can assure you that you'll get, we'll do the best of our ability. I know the guys support you super well with Shark Indicators, so I can assure you that we will attempt to do the same that they do, right? Always offering the extensive support and everything.
And we've had a couple of questions here,
Sure.
kind of generally asking to generalize or to summarize the question. They're asking, like, is there like a streamlined way to download your latest version of your indicator and get the Bloodhound templates, get the latest Bloodhound templates? Is there a streamlined way to do that, or should they just email you?
Oh man, we try to keep it user friendly. Yeah. So let's do this. Let me just kind of bring this back up here. So all I did was just log in, right? I just logged into the website, and this, just so you guys know, this is the process in which you'd have your own membership guide, etc. So, you could introduce yourself, and I showed you guys that introduction a minute ago. That's basically all they did. They clicked here, posted on the forum, you get the picture, start your course and all that good stuff. But yeah, as far as the software, absolutely, everything is right here. You can see we have complete tutorial, we have full documentation, everything, pretty well documented for you. This is video format. You'll have, you can read through it, and kind of the typical documentation style here. But yes, so when you download this, right? So when we click here and we download that, what it's going to do is obviously you're going to download the file, right? But then when you install it, it works a lot like Bloodhound would. If you're installing theirs alone or something, it's going to go ahead and do everything for you. So you'll have the Bloodhound template, you'll have all of our templates, you'll have obviously the software and everything. So all of that is going to be done for you, and you don't have to worry about any of that. But as I mentioned before, if you would like for us to set it up for you, not a problem. You just let us know. Remote support will take care of it. But yes, it is as simple as that.
I love how organized that page is.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
We're pretty organized, but that gives us something to learn.
Simply put, your installer just installs the Bloodhound template and the latest indicator all together. So
correct.
Pretty simple, guys.
Sounds like Kirk is interested in the $149 a month package. Now he's asking, does that come with Bloodhound templates or even Blackbird templates? I don't think you've talked about Blackbird at all.
No, we haven't talked about Blackbird today. Obviously, we can certainly look at we getting templates or whatever the case may be. Yeah, but as of right now, in the 149 package, it's a monthly package, right? So it would include you would be privy to that same file. Yeah, so it would download and install all that the same Bloodhound templates. Yeah.
So it's the same installer for whether you have a monthly license, yearly license, or lifetime license. It's the same installer, so you get all the same files.
That is correct. Yeah. The difference there being obviously in the yearly you're going to get the training material or the course and so on. In the lifetime you're going to get all of it, right? You're going to get the course, and I could bring that back up, but let's go back to that real quick. So if I go here, just note the differences, right? So here in the monthly, you don't get access to that. Just obviously the price point doesn't allow for it. But in the yearly, you do get access to this, and then of course in the lifetime you get access to this, and everything else as well. So so yeah, it would definitely include the software and all of that. The difference being the time, you're going to be paying on a monthly basis, of course, as opposed to.
Good point. I think mostly this audience is just mostly focused on the Bloodhound templates. So
Yeah.
They're just making sure they can get that Bloodhound template some way or
the other. Yeah, no worries. They can get it. They can get it, either way. It doesn't matter.
And Kirk was also asking about training involved in that. I'm assuming that's the first line there, the live education room. That's sort of where all the training sort of happens for how to use your stuff, how to read your stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So we in the live room on a daily basis, that being Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we just like we do, here, of course, we would answer, all the questions you have. I mean, we never leave. We do our best to never leave a question unanswered. In the room, of course, we are focused on analysis. So we go out and we look at a bunch of markets, whatever the members in the room want to look at, Forex, futures, equities, ETS, whatever. So we're using the software, right, in order to do that, and we're accommodating any questions that anyone has. Just don't forget that we also have, the tutorial and documentation, which extensively covers the software. So learning how to use it, learning what the settings are, how to manipulate them, all kind of stuff like that, you're going to find is covered in the tutorial and documentation. But it's still, there's so much to it. So not only are we going to do that, though, we'll answer all the questions in the live room on a daily basis, focusing on education and analysis. And then we also offer events on top of that to, specifically to the software alone. And of course, anyone who has, access, any member, anything like that, they would get an email notification. Hey, we're having a software training event, join at this such and such and time, and so on.
Cool. Sounds like you also just answered Roberto's question regarding, he's asking, do you have a way to use it to scan multiple assets? I'm assuming that there's no really, like you were saying before, it's very open. Doesn't matter what you're working with. It's not restricting you to the ES. I assume that's what Roberto is concerned about.
Oh, no. I mean, well, so if you remember when we were looking at our, when I had my screen sharing going, we were looking at the SP, sure, but all those tabs across the bottom. So we look at plethora of markets, man. I mean, I couldn't count them, but we look at whatever the members really want to. It doesn't mean that we trade all of them, right? We definitely do not, but we analyze any market that you guys want to. So predominantly we'll look at the index markets, of course, oil, gold, Aussie yen, euro dollar, the spot market, of course. We look at a lot of markets, and so the methodology is what it is. It's going to be the same really across the markets.
Take a step back to the market analyzer question again.
Mm-hmm.
So Will, have you ever developed any way to use your software in the market analyzer? I mean, I can't come up with, I can't envision on how something like support and resistance can be used in the market analyzer, but have you, or maybe your students in the trading room, figured out some way to use your software in the market analyzer to scan multiple instruments, and just see a quick alert on the market analyzer?
I personally have not, no, but I have I've discussed this in our internal team, and I think in the future we're probably going to end up developing our own scanner. That's look at that in the future, right? But for now, I don't know enough about the market, scanner myself. I don't really know how it works. If it works as far as connecting to data points and pulling values, there really is no reason why it wouldn't work. But I would be interested. I would be happy to work with anyone on that to see, because I can't give you a definitive yes on that. I just don't know. I never really use it myself. So I wish I could. Unfortunately, I can't though.
Yeah, and Kirk is saying, well, Bloodhound could be used in market analyzer, and that's true. So
then in theory it should, absolutely.
These zones, yeah, don't have a way to directly connect or correlate with the market analyzer, then it does sound very feasible that using that Bloodhound could be the workaround to get SD zone type of signals, whatever kind of signals you guys are looking for. If you could build the signals in Bloodhound, then theoretically that should work fine in the market analyzer as a workaround. So, right.
Absolutely. And Zach, you and I have worked together as far as the extensiveness of the software and so on. So you know enough about it, right? And so you could probably guide a little bit, but I would say that there's not many signals you wouldn't be able to create, because we provide, just so you guys know, we provide extensive data points to Bloodhound. I mean, how many was there, Zach? Do you recall? It was like 100, and it was a lot, right?
Too much for me to count. I didn't count all those data series. Right.
Yeah, it was a lot, man. So there's you guys as Bloodhound users would essentially have tons of data that you can get at. And as far as using it that way, yeah, I mean, you with Bloodhound, you could pretty much achieve tons of stuff in the analyzer. I would imagine.
You want to pull up a chart again?
Yeah, sure.
Will, and I'll just kind of help explain what we're talking about here.
Sure.
So, Will, once you point out the grid again, the altitude grid.
Okay. As a matter of fact, why don't I just turn everything off except for that? Let's do that. So what we're going to do here is just go ahead and toggle these zones off, make sure everything's off.
So just one simple example of the data that's available from Will's indicator, which is, one of them is the altitude grid. So you can see how the altitude grid is broken into 4 different sections, different colors, right? So each of those price levels is available to use within Bloodhound. So so Bloodhound can access all of those price levels there. Yeah, that Will's pointing out. Right, so that's just one example of the data that you get from Will's indicator. Right, and then depending on what zones you turn on, all that zone data is available to Bloodhound as well. So you can do all kinds of comparisons, right? You can compare where price is to the altitude grid. You can compare where price is to the current zone. Whatever is the current closest zone to price, you can do that kind of comparison with Bloodhound. And since Bloodhound has access to the zone prices, right, both the lower price and the upper zone price, Will, if you just want to point out, kind of illustrate what I'm talking about on one of the zones.
Oh yeah, the supply demand zones themselves.
Yeah, the supply demand zones, right. So since you can get the upper range of the zone, get the price for that, and the lower range for the zones, you can get that. So you can compare those zone prices to the altitude grid prices. So those are just some basic examples of all the data that you can get out of the indicator. And there's a lot more there to it, but I just don't know it well enough off the top of my head to give you guys any more examples. But there is a ton more available information coming out of the SD zone indicator.
Yeah, let me throw in there. Thank you so much, Zach. And let me throw in just to show how robust our software is. Let me throw in a couple of hypotheticals for them. So let's say that you want to create this entire trading system. The beautiful thing about, well, I say it's beautiful. Again, I'm biased, but what have you. In my opinion, the beautiful thing about the PFA Zone Suite is that it's so robust. It has so many things automated and built into it, right? So if I wanted to build a very robust trading system, you don't really need much. I would say you could really do that with Bloodhound and the PFA Zone Suite alone, unless you wanted to use some basic NinjaTrader indicator like the stochastics or RSI or, Bollinger Band, whatever that is. But of course, you can incorporate that with Bloodhound too, right? But with our software alone, let's say hypothetically, you wanted to say, I will take long positions if they are below grid, well, we would say line number 1, line 2. So this is altitude grid line 1, grid line 2, grid line 3. So you could say, I will take all long positions if below grid line 3, okay? If we're in an uptrend, right? Because that's automated there. So you have the value and you have the data access to if it's in an uptrend or not. You see the trend line there, okay? So you could say, I'll take a long opportunity down here out of demand, at the high value or within this zone if we're in an uptrend. And you could also require things like market structure. Okay, so we can go here, for example, market structure, and I can color the background even, but essentially you're just looking at the structure of the market. And you could say, I'll take a long opportunity at low altitude in a demand level if in an uptrend and the market structure is up. Right. I mean, there's so much that you can accomplish by doing it. That's why I love what Keith and Zach are talking about, because it's essentially endless. Now, I don't want you to get into a thing where you get overwhelmed and you say, well, you're thinking to yourself, wow, it may be too much. Yeah, but you don't have to use it, right? I mean, the tools are there at your discretion. Okay, but there's so much that you can actually get at and achieve. Including these tools, there's a lot of things in through here that you can get at and access that data. So you could really create some robust trading systems. I think maybe, I don't know, Zach, if you'd agree with me on that, pretty extensive there.
Yes, right. The market structure. So there's so much in it. I already forgot about. Yeah, the market structure.
Yeah,
exposed to Bloodhound as well. So,
yep,
yeah, good
absolutely.
point. Good point.
Awesome.
Michael, definitely reach out to him or us about that. I think I remember him saying, so the reason why you're not running Bloodhound on these charts is just because it would take a longer time to load than you wanted to deal with in the webinar. Is that the reason why you're not running Bloodhound on these charts you're working with?
Yeah, I just was trying to keep the charts clean. I mean, I could put, Bloodhound on any, I just duplicated it, the S&P over here. So, well, excuse me, this is my smaller time frame. I just put it on one chart, for you guys to see. But absolutely, I mean, we could flip this, around and do it on any. I just figured, hey, keep it simple for the audience. But over here, this way you get to see our software just working by itself and so on and so forth. Yeah, and then you get to see what Bloodhound can do with it. No other reason.
Michael, that's more of a technical question. Definitely reach out to us. We'll dig deeper with you. Cool. I think Zach, unless you're saying I'm mistaken, I think we're at the end of the Q&A questions there.
Yeah, I think we wrapped it up. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, look, first, Zach, Keith, appreciate your time. Appreciate you guys being here, spending it with me. Always enjoy it thoroughly. For everyone, still here in the room, thank you guys so much. Very valuable. And it's getting very late in the day. We're on Eastern time, so we're gonna head out as well. Let us know if you need anything. We're always an email or just a contact form away, and we'll do whatever we can to help in any.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much. This actually, I think, went very well. Everybody seemed very engaged, very interested in what you had to say. So, yeah, I just ask that everybody just stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. If you have questions, reach out. We're here to help on both sides. So, thanks for coming out, and yeah, have a good night, guys.
All right. Yep. And for PFA owners, make sure you get the latest version. So just released.
Most definitely. Thanks, guys. God bless you all. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.
Thanks guys. Bye-bye.